Hi everyone, in this video we're taking a look at the top 10 mistakes driving instructors make when teaching people to drive. So let's get straight into it with number 10, using a fancy car. How many instructors do you see now who are advertising learn to drive in a BMW, learn to drive in an Audi? Wow! How does having a fancy car make you a good instructor? Well, it doesn't, does it? Many instructors that use a fancy car are just trying to hide their lack of skill. And I'll tell you something now, this is a great tip. Some of the best driving instructors you'll ever find have really old cars because they don't care about the car. It's not the car that matters, it's their ability to teach. But so many instructors get sucked into this stupid game of let's see who can use the stupidest car to teach people to drive in. I've seen people teaching in Porsches, Range Rovers, and it's this ridiculous competition of who can show off the most, who can get the fanciest car. You need a good instructor, not just a good car. Now, of course, there may be instructors that have nice cars, and they are also good instructors. It can happen, but my experience is that very often the worst instructors will hide behind a good car. Number 9 is shouting at pupils. Now, I've done a whole separate video on this one, but a bad instructor will resort to shouting because quite simply they can't teach. They don't know how to teach. They don't know how to transfer their skill from one person to another, so they just resort to shouting. Now, all shouting does is destroy the pupil's confidence. It doesn't help at all, and it just shows the instructor doesn't know what they're doing. But if you want to learn more about this point, check out my other video about shouting instructors. Number 8 is talking about their personal life too much. I hear about this one a lot. Lots of people will come to me and say, my last instructor just would never shut up about his own life, his problems with his wife, his family, his kids. They just waffle on and on talking about their own life. No one cares, okay? Your lessons need to be about the people, not about you. If people ask me about my personal life, you just give them a short answer, keep it friendly, but then get the attention back on the driving. The focus should be on the people, not the instructor. Number 7 is using confusing language. So when instructors teach people and they're saying things like press the clutch in, let the clutch out, what does that mean? What are you on about? Press the clutch in. How do I press the clutch in? What the meaning is left foot down, let the clutch out. That means left foot up. It's no good talking to a people about, they ask you why did it stall, and you say, oh, because you didn't apply enough revs and the torque wasn't relevant. What are you going on about? Right, it's nothing to do with that. Keep it simple. Don't ever use technical jargon. Don't use any kind of technical language. There is no need. The sentences should be kept short and simple and to the point. There is no need to use confusing technical jargon to try and impress people and make yourself look all clever, because people will just think you're stupid. Number 6, talking too much. This is similar to the other one about talking about personal life, but it's just that they talk too much and it goes on and on and on and on and on. And I'll tell you a story about how I learned about this. Many, many years ago, when I was a fairly new instructor, I had a pupil who was awful. They were just absolutely beyond help. They were terrible. And I did something that an instructor should never do, and that's how I learned about all these mistakes. I gave up with the people. I thought, I just can't be bothered. I'm going to get them home, and I'm just never going to come back. I'm never going to teach them again. And what I did is I just stopped talking on the way back home, and that people drove home perfectly. They did nothing wrong. And I sat there, and I was kind of stunned. And I just said to them, why don't you always drive like that? And I always remember they said to me, oh, it's because you're normally talking to me and it distracts me, but you weren't talking, so I could concentrate, and I did much better. And that was a massive turning point in my career. I will never forget that. And that pupil taught me so much about just shut it, keep it zipped, don't talk too much. And that is one of the biggest problems instructors have, is they just talk too much. And it's often because they want to help. They do it from a position of care, like I wanted to help. And I was getting frustrated, why are they not doing it properly? Because I was actually getting in the way. Number 5 is teaching differently to how they drive themselves. This is a classic. When I've trained instructors, they will be teaching the pupil to do something, and I just say to the instructor, is that what you do? And they say, well, no. So why are you teaching a learner to do it? Oh, well, because they're a learner and I'm an instructor. No, there is not a separate way for a learner to drive, and for a normal driver to drive, and for a driving instructor to drive. It's all the same. I have always taught people up to an advanced level from the beginning, so every pupil I've ever had has had advanced driving training from day one, because there must not be a difference. A good example of this is a lot of instructors will teach learners that every time they stop, they've got to put the handbrake on. Why? So I asked the instructor, is that what you do? Do you keep putting the handbrake on every time you stop? And they say, well, of course not. So then why are you teaching the pupil? Well, because they're a learner. No, there is not a separate way for learners to drive. You must teach in the same way that you drive, which must be properly. Number 4 is teaching test routes. What a classic this one is. How many instructors and schools are there out there where all they will do is just drive the test routes? And I have this a lot. Lots and lots, and I'm talking dozens, if not over 100 people who I've taught to drive have said that they just drove around the route over and over and over, and all they were doing was learning the roads that the test goes on. I've only ever had one in 20 years who did this. One person said to me once, is this road on the test routes? And when I said no, they got quite angry and said, well, why are we on it then? And they were really annoyed that I was taking them on roads that were not on the test routes. So you must not learn a test route. What is the point? Why pass a test and then say, right, so I've passed and now I can only drive on these roads, and you've got a list of roads that you can drive on and you can't go anywhere else? What is the point? No. Number 3, teaching to pass a test. This is a classic, and it's very similar to the last one, but it's slightly different because not only do these instructors just teach people the routes, but they even teach specific things. Like, for example, they'll say, when the examiner pulls you up, make sure you keep checking over your right shoulder several times, or make sure you look all the way around the car before you move off. Why? Because you'll fail your test if you don't. Another great example of this is parallel parking. The standard for parallel parking is quite low on the driving test, so they'll only ask you to complete the manoeuvre within 2 lengths of the car that you start next to. Now that standard is not going to get you into a parking space once you've passed, but these instructors don't care, because all they want to do is get you through the test, get you passed and meet their quotas. And then when you pass your test, you won't have a clue how to park your car. You won't be able to park in a narrow gap. Have you ever parked between 2 cars on your lessons? You'll be amazed how many people pass having never done that, because certainly where I am, the examiners never do it between 2 cars. They only do it behind one. And in 20 years and the hundreds of tests I've done, I've only ever had one test where they did it between 2 cars, and that is a story for another video as to why that happened. But they don't generally ever do it between 2. Certainly where I am, maybe where you are, they do. But there is no point in teaching that and saying, oh, it's okay, you only have to park beyond 1, you don't need to do between 2. No, because you're just learning how to pass the test. Number 2 is teaching their way, not the way. So what I mean by this is they've got their own method of driving that they've developed over the years, and they teach that to other people. So instead of teaching by the book, instead of teaching by what the DVSA lay down as is required standard, they teach on their opinion of what they think will be good. So for example, I've known instructors who teach people to just sit with a foot on the brake at traffic lights. It's just a bad habit that they've picked up themselves, and they just sit with the clutch down in first gear, the other foot on the brake. No, they're 4 or 5 cars back, and they're sitting like that, and their attitude is, well, what's the problem? It works for me. I've been doing it years. My pupils are passing. No, that's not a pure instructor. That's an instructor who's just doing it their way, not the way. Another example of this is not bothering to teach people about leaving a car parked in gear. I don't think anyone I've taught has ever been taught to leave the car parked in gear. Why? Because the instructor doesn't do it themselves, but by the book. And if there's anyone who's got any sense will tell you it's much better to leave a car parked in gear. Check out the video linked on the screen now, and at the end of this one for more on that. And here we are then, number 1. The biggest mistake that I see driving instructors making is by far one that will baffle people, and if instructors are watching this, a lot of them won't even know what this means. Number 1 is fixing symptoms, not problems. Okay, now this comes from my work as a therapist. You don't fix symptoms. So if someone says they've got driving anxiety, that's a symptom. You have to find what the real problem is and work on that. Now a classic example of this, one I've heard over and over again, time and time again, is roundabouts. How many people, if I had £1 for every time a pupil had come to me and said, I've got this problem, I can't do roundabouts, and they failed on roundabouts, so what does an instructor work on? Roundabouts. It's nothing to do with roundabouts, okay? A problem with roundabouts has nothing to do with roundabouts. If you've got a problem with roundabouts, what is it that you're doing wrong? Over the years, I have seen this so many times. People come to me and they are baffled as to why they couldn't pass the driving test. It's because the instructor makes the classic mistake of working on the symptom. So if they fail on traffic lights, it's nothing to do with traffic lights. If they fail on parking, parking has nothing to do with parking. And this is why I'm so successful where others aren't, because I understand that that is a symptom, not the real problem. Check out these other videos on the screen now, and if you've enjoyed this, do hit the like button and let me know, and I've got more ideas for top 10 videos coming soon that you won't have heard before anywhere else. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you again soon for more videos.